One of the most important tools in digital art are layers.
Because I'm a traditional artist by practice,
I usually only use about 10 layers maximum in a drawing. And this isn't because I don't believe I know how to use layers, but because I think it's a middle ground between traditional art and digital art. When painting traditionally, we often wait for layers to dry. And depending on the medium, this can range anywhere from a couple minutes to several hours to several months. And I don't know about you, but I really don't have the time or energy to always wait for that process. And digital art holds the alternative to that wait time. If you've looked at any brush engine, specifically with brushes that mimic real paint, there are settings that relate to a wet paint brush with paint on top of it. And as long as you are applying all of this on one layer, it's going to react like wet paint would. And this is a direct mimicry of wet paint on a singular layer of a painting. For example, with an underpainting, I'm going to want all my paint to be wet so I can adjust it as I go. But when I want to build up more color and more depth, I'm going to wait for that underpainting to dry so it doesn't cause any discoloration for my painting. Similarly, when you are ready for your paint to be dried, and this is paint in the digital sense, you can simply create a new layer.
I do my best to start my digital projects the same exact way I would a traditional painting.
This means I start with the sketch, and then quickly add a background base tone. Then I'll put extremely basic colors for the foreground, and only then do I start actually painting. And every single time I get done with blocking in colors or adding in a little more depth, and I want to proceed with some details, I will add a new layer so I can work smaller. And this is almost identical to my process I use with oil painting. Digital art is so vast and there are so many ways to use layers and use the tools that it can get really overwhelming at times, and I end up enjoying it a lot more if I use traditional tactics on a digital screen. Because all digital art is built on traditional formats of creation, it's not like I'm actually misusing this in any way. You can see on the screen right now that I'm working on blocking in more colors, so I'm still not at a tonal depth where I would create another layer to add a bunch of more details. And instead I'm basically filling in the blanks. If it isn't obvious by now, I'm working with a very limited color palette. It's 5 colors, and it's because this is an art trade I was doing with a fellow artist on TikTok, and our theme was dancers with the same color palette. So we wanted to see how each other would take these same set of colors and create entirely different pieces. This is their piece, and I think they really did a cool job with muting colors and creating a different tone entirely. Their social medias will be linked in my description. Obviously, these 5 colors have different amounts of tone and tint to them, so they can all be used to create the illusion of depth, and I chose to stick very strictly to these colors as a personal challenge and also to create a more vibrant and saturated artwork. For this and all of the artwork you're ever going to see me make, it's likely that I'm using Clip Studio Paint's native thin gouache brush. You can see me alternate between the 3 brushes on the side, and although they're all separate, they are all just versions of the thin gouache brush that I have altered for my own personal preference. A lot of people like to think that using layers is cheating, but it's really just something artists do in real life, so I really don't understand that argument. If you are a traditional artist, then I expect that coming into the world of digital art is very overwhelming, it's very scary, and there are a lot of different options you have within layers, which means that a lot of traditional turned digital artists just end up using one singular layer for a lot of their artworks. So I guess I'm here to tell you that you shouldn't do that. You should try to explore layers even if it doesn't mean you are exploring every single aspect of them.